Parkcast, the UK's original theme park podcast.
Welcome back to Parkcast. I'm Bex. This is Kev.
Hi, everyone.
And we are a podcast for theme park fans. If you're new here, you can go and check out some of our previous episodes. They're all available for you to listen to. We've got interviews, we've got chats, we've got us just having a bit of a moan, if we're honest.
Me and Bex, we're here to fix the wrongs in the UK theme park industry. We want to solve the problems that we can see. We want to,
when you have football fans sort of summarising the game, even though they're not football players or managers, that's basically us in the world of theme parks.
Absolutely. They always say it, every football fan is a football manager.
Yeah.
We know best. We all know what's best for the team, and it's the same with theme parks, isn't it? We see it and we go, I know how to fix that.
We try. We're not claiming to have all the answers. This is just our opinion. This is an opinions-based podcast, and we're just bringing you stuff as we see it and having a bit of a chat about it. Of which I have to refer back to last week's episode, which was what on earth's going on at Alton Towers, which is the question we've all been asking this season. And one of the main sort of questions we were talking about, one of the main things we were talking about in that episode was Hex and its promised reopening in 2024 since about March. Yep. And we said, what's going on with Hex? They've said it's going to reopen. Literally, the day we posted that episode, Alton Towers social media
announced it. Yeah.
Hex is reopening on the 11th of October, actually, at 12 p.m. So 2 fingers up to you, Parkcast.
I know, it was like they knew all along and they were just waiting for us to say it, and then they've gone and announced it anyway. So, but it's exciting. It's good. I think it's good news, that we've actually got one of the things we were talking about was this idea of communication between the park and its guests, and I think Alton Towers have obviously given us an answer to something that people have been asking all year. I do feel sorry for Bianca Summit, who's probably been walking around Alton Towers, and every time she gets bumped into, someone goes, "When's Hex opening?" And she's had to say soon, but can't give an exact date. So she can finally relax now that I think that's going to open, and hopefully will open and stay open, and everything will work, and that'll be fine.
We're going to try and get on that in the next week or so. So, of course, we'll bring you our thoughts on its reopening. I know it's a big favourite of yours. You do like a dark ride. So
oh yes, absolutely.
Good to see what they've done with Hex. This week, though, we are moving slightly northwest. You mentioned Bianca. Talk about the formidable woman in the UK theme park industry. We're heading northwest. We're heading to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and. My question is really, is it time that Blackpool Pleasure Beach brought back free entry?
Parkcast.
See, obviously we are of a similar age. I'm still going out on the limb saying I'm still slightly younger.
Yeah, okay. You keep
before we get into the whole 40 talk again.
I've got like a week. I've got a week and a half left.
We're getting closer. But we're of the age that I remember when theme parks used to do this, free entry or reduced ticket price, and then you obviously paid for the attractions that you wanted to go on, and that was always the way, wasn't it, with Blackpool? And you had your wristband and or you did you paid
A, B, and C rides. Do you remember them? So so if it was like a good ride, it'd be that's an A ride or whatever, so you need more tickets for that, and less tickets if you just want to go on Thompson's Carousel.
But it's the same with Disneyland. Disneyland did exactly the same thing, where you had your e-ticket attractions, and those are the top ones, and you paid for however many times you wanted to go on it. So there'd always been this thing about, do you pay a bigger sum of money to get in, and then you just go on everything as many times you want, which is difficult to do, because if it's busy, you're not always going to get on. You're not going to get on Smiler 5 times on a busy Saturday, are you?
No.
So there was always that debate, and also. With my parents, for example, they took us to theme parks up and down the country, but my parents aren't, big ride fanatics. So they wouldn't go on everything. And, you'd pay a small amount to get in, and it was a relatively cheap day out. If you're not a big ride person, you're not going to go on everything. So it is an interesting discussion about Blackpool.
I think the thing that's brought this sort of back to the forefront is we're looking at sort of reports from the park and their financials and things like that over the last couple of years, and it's not a great picture for Blackpool Pleasure Beach at the moment. And this is a part I know we obviously we talked about Alton Towers so much last week, and that's a park so close to your heart. Blackpool is really close to my heart. It is the first park that I went to. It's the first major roller coaster that I went on was the Grand National. It's somewhere that I've always been from a very young age, and I started going there when you didn't have wristbands, and it was A, B, and C ticket, literal physical tickets. That's how old I am. Little paper tickets that you gave into the ticket booth on your way onto each ride. But the park was always Blackpool, but it had a great atmosphere to it because you had so many people there who maybe weren't on the rides, but they were just there in the park, just soaking up the atmosphere. Now, if you look at some of the figures that have come out, and these were posted last December, because when the companies sort of do their annual figures and send stuff to Companies House, that's when they do it. So there'll be another load that come out this December. So we've got a couple of months to wait. But for last December, the turnover at Blackpool was down £7 million. That's huge. They had a £522,000 pre-tax loss, and their visitor numbers were down 20%. So I don't think that they can't be looking at those numbers and going, this is great. It's certainly not sustainable. And you dial it back to 1999, which is when they introduced the wristband. So before that, you could go in, you could walk around the park for no cost at all. You only pay if you want to go on the rides. They were claiming then they were getting about 7.5 million visitors a year. They were like the most popular attraction in the UK because you could just go walk around it for free.
Yeah.
And now those figures are so down. What impact is that having on the park? Obviously, there's negatives to having free entry. And I think the big thing was, I didn't have a family at the time. Obviously, I was a child myself, but from a family's point of view, which I can kind of see now, if you've got free entry and anyone can go and walk around that park at any time of the day, and it's Blackpool, you get a lot of stag do's, hen do's.
Safeguarding issue, isn't it?
Yeah. And you get people who've had maybe a little bit too much to drink and they go, let's go and walk around the pleasure beach. And maybe it doesn't create the best atmosphere for families.
And I think as well, that's if you, so like myself, we've got 3 children. And if you've got 3 children, as they get older and they all want to go on the big one, for example, then you've got to pay for yourself. And depending on how much it is, that'll add up. And Blackpool has so many different rides and attractions that you want to experience. I think when you start adding that up, if you're a family of 5 like we are, and then you go, so you want to do like the big one, you want to do Icon, you want to do the Grand National, Valhalla, you start adding all these attractions up, and actually it might end up working out potentially more.
I think it definitely would have been compared to a wristband price now. I think if you were looking at individual tickets, it would definitely be more. But could they not do a system where you've still got the option to buy a wristband, an unlimited ride wristband, effectively? Like if you go to, say, Fantasy Island, which is just down the road from me, that still operates in that same amusement park way. So you can walk around it for free, you can buy individual tickets, or you can buy an unlimited all-day wristband. And you've got that option. So you're kind of pleasing everyone. But what you are doing is opening the park up to people who are non-riders, so maybe grandparents or just people who don't like rides. We're not all like us. Who want to go with their friends and family who might be put off otherwise. They might not say, there's no way I am spending 30-40 quid on a Blackpool Pleasure Beach wristband to go and hold coats all day. I'm just not going to do that. Whereas actually, if I can come in for free, you guys can get your wristbands, I'll hold the coats, and I'll also sit and have a coffee, buy some lunch,
there's
look around the shops.
Because it's the same with so I know my parents always wanted to come to Alton Towers with us, with the girls, because they wanted to see their grandchildren go on a ride and stuff. But for them, it's like, well, that means I've got to pay to get into Alton Towers, but I'm not actually going to go on anything. So there is that issue. I know Alton Towers, obviously, they have ways around that. So if you're a pass holder, you get they used to do the bring someone for £15. So there are obviously ways around that. So there is positive and negatives with doing that. I guess then that kind of leads into the idea of annual passes as well. And
well, yeah. I mean, and
you know,
Blackpool obviously have been getting a lot of bad press in the last few weeks about that because they released their 2025 annual pass prices, and I think everyone, including diehard fans of Blackpool Pleasure Beach, took a sharp intake of breath when they announced that they were going to be £225 for a Blackpool Pleasure Beach annual pass. And the reason for that sharp intake of breath is that when you compare it to, say, a Merlin Gold Pass, which is £240, but a Merlin Pass obviously gets you entry into all of those Merlin attractions. It's a lot for one park.
It is, and that's quite an increase.
It was £189 for the 2024 season, and it's gone up to 225. They did then backtrack a little bit, and they said if you're a season pass holder already, you can renew it for 199. So still £200 for a renewal. Yeah, I remember it wasn't that long ago when they were advertising renewal prices, and it was like just over 100 quid. And it really was not that long ago. Like, I'm thinking maybe the last 5 years. So I think the issue is, so you've got less people on park because you've got this wristband system. The people who are loyal to the park, you're having to get more out of them because you've got less people on park and less spend. You need to kind of keep your books balanced from somewhere. So the only way to do that is to charge more for your day tickets and your annual passes. So then it's like, it's a vicious circle then, because if you start charging too much, even more people will go, well, I'm not going then. So the visitor numbers decline more and more and more and more to the point where it's not sustainable. And actually, this is where it comes back to this free entry thing. Maybe you need to get people into the park for free, kind of give them a little carrot on a stick, like, ooh, come and look at our lovely park. And more people go back to it and they go, actually, this is a great day out. Yeah, I'll get an annual pass.
So the park released a statement. So this is what Blackpool have said. We are an independent, family-run business navigating rising costs and inflation, but we work hard to make sure our season passes continue to represent value for money. We are open 221 days over 10 months in 2025, longer than in previous years, and with more extended openings. We've added additional benefits, including a free visit to Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Woo!
I know. And a free visit to Adventure Golf, as well as our existing benefits.
Stop right now.
Okay.
I get a free visit. Take it all back. It's worth it. Free visit to that adventure golf course next to the seafront there, where your ball definitely doesn't get blown around all over the place.
That's it's one of the trickiest golf courses in the UK. So then they got about as well as our existing benefits such as discounts on food, shopping, shows, and events, speedy passes, and Big Blue hotel stays.
Which is what you get with a Merlin pass as well, right? You get discount and all that stuff.
Yeah. We've increased our European partner parks from 6 to 7 this year. So Platinum season pass holders can now benefit from free entry to 7 parks across Europe, equivalent to the value of more than £300.
Okay, let's dissect that a little bit, because I do think it is a nice thing that they do this. This is a good thing. And if you are a roller coaster fan, theme park fan like us, and some of the parks are really good, aren't they? They're the parks you get free entry to, like Liseberg, Portaventura, Efteling, Europa Park. These are the biggest parks.
Oh yeah,
like there's no question.
When you list them out in front of you, go, actually, if you're getting discount on going to those parks, and you have the ability to get around Europe and visit parks like that, then it's
a no-brainer.
That's good.
Yeah, but good. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's the if. And realistically, how many of us are based in the UK and we're going to say next year we are going to go to Germany, Spain, Sweden, the Netherlands? It's a lot.
You'd probably get to one of those parks, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Really, if you're if you've got a family and you've got kids at school, it's going to be you can't just go, right, well, this week we're going to Germany, and then in this month it's just not easy to do that. I mean, for us, we'd probably go visit one place in a year, just because that you just, with family and work, you just can't do that. But it's that carrot on the stick thing, isn't it? You look at the list of those parks and you're thinking, well, actually, But you've got to kind of also compare it to the Merlin stuff. So if you compare it and look at like, well, I know that with a Merlin annual pass, I can get to Alton Towers, I can get to Legoland, I can get to Chessington and Thorpe Park. Okay, I can also do the Sea Life Centres. I can do the Lego Discovery Centres. Now, they're all of different quality. But if it means you know that on a certain Saturday and you've got, well, what should we do? Well, why don't we go here? Because we've got our passes we're getting for free.
And they're all in this country.
And they're all in this country. They're all together. Probably going to get more out of that. And I guess Blackpool are trying to find a way of, you know, trying to compete with that. And I guess the pull is with the enthusiasts with these European parks.
It's kind of a bit weird to me as well that obviously, like you say, it's for the enthusiasts. That's who you'd look at. Most of the general public, and like I'd include like my brother or whatever in this. If I said, have you heard of even, I mean, maybe even Europa Park, he might not have heard of. Liseberg, certainly, he'd be like, never heard of it. Mm-hmm. Like, so that you are targeting enthusiasts. And at the same time, Amanda's been quite vocal this year about enthusiasts and about how they're kind of annoying her a little bit, which I get. Like, some enthusiasts absolutely take it too far. And, you know, we had a good chat with Andy Hine a few months ago, and we spoke about the entitlement of certain enthusiasts and how they expect that they need to be given all the answers straight away. And basically Amanda needs to give them a personal consultation on every decision she makes, which is absolutely outrageous. And it, you know, it's not the way that any of us should be acting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't do a load of benefits for enthusiasts and then be like, yeah, but actually you're all really irritating me and I'm not going to tell you anything. And I think Blackpool's a little bit lost. That's the feeling that I'm getting from it at the moment. It doesn't really know what it is. I was reading you know, some of the forums, and people were saying even when they've gone up there, it's branded in like 5 different ways. So some of the merchandise says Pleasure Beach Lancashire, some says Pleasure Beach Blackpool, some says Pleasure Beach Resort. It's like, what? That needs some direction. It's like, what are you? And I think that's kind of what its problem is at the moment. It doesn't know. And if it's a resort, yes, it's a resort, and it's you know, wristband entry, but you're on a seafront and you're in the northwest of England and it's Blackpool. So does that work? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think because Blackpool is unique, and I think it was one of the things that previous guests had mentioned on the podcast in the previous series was its uniqueness and why it's the one park. If you're in America, you go to Blackpool because it's uniquely different to other theme parks in the UK. Because, you know, if you're a fan of Woodies, you love wooden coasters, great place to go. If you love to go on old-fashioned rides that have been around for decades and decades, it's the park to go to. And I think that's why Blackpool has always attracted an enthusiast community, because you've got people who are in their 50s and 60s, you know, who will remember rides and still go on rides that they've been on as a kid because they're still there. And I think that's where Blackpool is a tricky one, because you're looking at how much money are you in refurbishing and maintaining these classic rides that are very nostalgic. And if you remove it, you're going to have people with pitchforks and stuff approaching the park going, how dare you remove the river caves, for example, which we can talk about in a minute, because it's been there since 1905. It's been running since 1905. How could you remove it? But if you're going to get new people into the park, and this is why Icon worked so well and was so successful, because it was shiny and new, and it was a fantastic roller coaster for the park. You know, it brought a lot of new faces in who maybe had never been to Blackpool before. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's that, do you have to remove certain things in order to bring new things in that could bring new people in and you know, new investment in? It's that balance. And I do feel for the Thompson family, because I think they have those kind of difficult decisions to make when it comes to running that.
Let's talk about what they removed this year, which of course was the Grand Prix, which, you know, again, has been there forever and a day. And there was a lot of enthusiast outcry about it being removed. But as Andy Hine rightly said on his episode, you can go back and listen to that. you can't moan about something being removed if you haven't been supporting it and riding it, and if the general public aren't supporting it and riding it cannot just stand there taking up a huge footprint of the park and not attracting or doing any business for the park. So I absolutely, it was also really unreliable. I mean, I think even on its closing event day, which they sold, it was like 50 quid a ticket to go and ride the Grand Prix for the last time. All the cars are breaking down. It was time for it to go.
Just it's time, I think.
Yeah, it's sad, but like you say, life moves on. So that's obviously been a big thing at the park this year. There's obviously a lot of chatter about what's going in that space, because are they just removing it and going to leave it as dead space, or are they going to put a ride in? Now, obviously, no one really, I don't think, believes that Blackpool will just leave a huge amount of empty space in the middle of the, some prime real estate in the park. But there was a lot of expectation that Amanda Thompson at that Grand Prix event was going to announce what was going to take its place, and she didn't, which I think surprised a lot of people. And again, it's like, well, why didn't she announce anything then? What's she keeping close to her chest? I've seen some rumors that, and these are literally rumors, that she has got cold feet about what's going to go in there.
Oh, right.
And the rumor, well, it's not a rumor. This is for sure, right? Blackpool Pleasure Beach have placed an order for an Intamin gyro swing, which is awesome. Obviously, the only one we've got at the moment is at Drayton Manor.
And fantastic. Fantastic flat ride.
One of the best flat rides in the country.
Oh, amazing.
And Amanda's also said that what will replace Grand Prix will take you to unprecedented heights.
Okay, right, yeah.
Which could be a massive giant gyro. Like, it could be awesome. You've definitely got the footprint there to put it in.
And height is not a problem at Blackpool.
No, they don't have the restrictions that the place. No. I think the only restriction they've got is literally for aircraft. So if it's over 200 foot, they have to put a beacon on the top. So if the planes going into Blackpool Airport don't take it out.
Yeah.
But the other sort of question mark that people have got is, okay, so they've put this order in for this gyro swing, which hasn't been announced and has kind of only been found out through, people doing some digging through channels. But also Ice Blast. I don't offend Amanda now. Ice Blast, PlayStation the Ride, whatever.
I remember PlayStation. I go. Yeah, it's PlayStation the Ride to me. Still, it's still.
And Amanda. So that's been standing but not operating all season as well, and is apparently waiting on a part.
Okay.
Is it ever going to reopen? Could you put a gyro swing there?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, there's the space for it, isn't there? There's definitely a space.
Next to Valhalla could be a nice little Viking themed. Themed thing.
I mean, I can't help but think about Drayton Manor and what Drayton Manor have been doing this year and last few years. I think Drayton Manor have the blueprint, and only because I'm thinking about a family-run theme park. But obviously, Drayton Manor got bought out.
Yeah,
it's had quite a lot of investment, and Drayton Manor now obviously have in mind their vision of what they want their park to be.
Yeah,
and we've seen that. We talked about it earlier in a previous episode about the wave and how it's now has a reduced height restriction because it's sat down, it's seated and not standing. So they know what direction they want to take Drayton Manor, and they've had to make some difficult decisions. Apocalypse being one of them. It's one of the best drop tower rides around. That had to be removed in order for them to move on with their plan. It was a difficult decision to make, but they knew what they wanted to do. And obviously we've now had their new family coaster open. Looks great, very successful. So they know what they're doing with it. And you look at Blackpool and you think something potentially might have to do something similar. Whether that means, and I don't think the Thompson family would ever hand it over to someone else, but there is that chance. You're in this point now where you're looking at the park and the state it's in, rides that are not opening. We don't know what's been opening in the future. There's no kind of feel like there's a plan at the minute. Whether there needs to be some kind of change that needs to be similar to what's happening at Drayton Manor, say, this is the direction we're going in. It's going to hurt fans, but in terms of for the future of the park, for its sustainability and for it to keep on going, we're going to have to, do these things. And There was even a point with Valhalla. It felt like, was that ever going to open again?
Yeah.
And obviously they did, but there was a time where it went through, years went by and it's still closed. And it's like, is it going to open again? And if you want to bring new people into your park, I think there has to be an emphasis on a bit of change, which, might hurt some people in terms of their love for certain attractions. But I guess that's where the problem is, isn't it? I mean, what do you can you see a particular?
For me, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. I think it's an identity crisis. It doesn't know what it is, and I think Jeffrey Thompson ran the park as a seaside amusement park with tickets and free entry, and that's what it was. It was cheap and cheerful, and it was an old-fashioned day out sort of thing. And he put the big one in, and he got everyone talking about it again, and it drew in, putting the big one in drew in so many new people that kind of revived that park for the next 20 years. And I think it's now in a bit of a slump again. It doesn't know what it is. And Amanda Thompson is a very clever businesswoman. Let's not underestimate her at all. Like she's not going to be sat at home twiddling her thumbs, like playing Roller Coaster Tycoon with Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Like she will know in her heart what she wants to do with it. But I feel like that they're a bit strangled at the moment, maybe by financials, and they don't really know how to get over that. And they have got an identity crisis. You mentioned Valhalla, that refurb, it was £4 million to refurb it. Like it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a ride which is widely regarded as the best dark ride in the UK.
Yeah.
But not a ride that non-enthusiasts will be talking about in 2024. Do you know what I mean? Then no one was saying, I've got to go to Blackpool because I've got to go on Valhalla. And it's absolutely right that ride should operate. And it's amazing that Blackpool have got that, but it's not a talking point. And when in the year when Thorpe Park have opened Hyperia and Alton Towers have unleashed Nemesis Reborn with all the fanfare that went around that, no one's been talking about Blackpool Pleasure Beach.
No.
And what is Amanda going to do to get people talking about Blackpool Pleasure Beach again? Yes, you can put a gyro swing in the Grand Prix area, and we both agree it'll be a great ride. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be massively impressive to get people to go, I've got to go to Blackpool and get on that.
Yeah. Well, it's like I was saying about Icon, but that was 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So it was just like we were saying with I'm going to still call it the Pepsi Max big one because, that's still, when that opened again, it was that thing, wasn't it? It was, you had the tallest ride. And so you're pulling an audience in, but not only were you pulling an audience in to go on the big one, but you also went, the Grand National is such a great roller coaster. How have I not been on this before?
Yeah.
Or how have I not known this was here? I mean, heard of the Big Dipper because it had been around for years and years. It was such a, famous wooden coaster. But there were certain attractions when I went to Blackpool for the first time I'd never even heard of, and they were amazing. And you go, have I not been here before? And I think Icon did that as well. Brought people in. Oh yeah, you had a great day out. You buy the seaside, and I think the thing with Blackpool that for me is different to say other Merlin parks is if I'm going to Blackpool, I'm going to go for a whole weekend because I want to go and watch the circus. I'm going to want to go to the tower and the ballroom and, visit all these other things and go to the seaside, the pier. There's so many things, and maybe do adventure golf as well.
Do not forget adventure golf.
I can't forget adventure golf. But these are the things you're going to go for a whole weekend of stuff to do. It's not just the pleasure beach. And,
I think this is why people in Blackpool as well are getting a bit annoyed, and they're the ones who are being quite vocal actually about making the pleasure beach free again, because they almost feel like the pleasure beach is the draw of Blackpool. So if the pleasure beach is free, more people will come to the pleasure beach, and by virtue of that, more people will come to Blackpool and they will go and visit these other Blackpool attractions and, spend money in Blackpool. And I think that the people who live there have maybe felt like since wristbands were introduced, the pleasure beach, it's down millions. The number of visitors that the pleasure beach gets is down millions since wristbands were introduced. And that has a knock-on effect to the whole town. So actually, if you said, right, okay, cool, next season, it's not going to happen. But next season, let's play devil's advocate. We're bringing back the option for free entry to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and you can buy a wristband, unlimited ride wristband, or you can just buy ride tickets. Don't forget, they've still got the infrastructure to do this at the moment, because they've got the pointless wristband scanners on entrance to every ride, which everyone's got a wristband, so why are we scanning our wristbands? They've still got that infrastructure at the moment, so they can still do it until they take those scanners away. Why not trial it and just see what happens? And does it bring more people back to the park when you've not got something big to shout about?
Yeah.
Is that actually quite a cheap, cost-effective way of just getting some footfall into the park, which A, spends money in coffee shops and whatever, but B, you've got people back into the park who wouldn't have maybe gone otherwise, and maybe then consider on the day going, actually, I'm going to get a wristband actually, because it's worth me doing it.
I mean, if you have got a few rides that are not operational, they're still there. But if you've got that wristband idea, or if you're paying for attractions, it doesn't look as bad. Because if you walk into a theme park, you've just paid. It's like what we were saying about Alton Towers, isn't it? If you pay full price entry and you walk into the theme park and then 5 of the roller coasters are down, you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, I've just paid. Whereas I know I'm saying it's not great to still have rides sat there not working, but I think if you are just paying for the attractions you want to do, you've got free entry. It doesn't look as bad if you walk into Blackpool and you see a few things down, but you're going to go and pay for other things. You might not do everything. You can
make a decision. Yeah,
it's not as bad. Yeah.
Yeah, you can say, yeah, it's still worth me getting a wristband, or actually, no, I'm just going to do X, Y, and Z. And that's the other thing, actually, for people who are super local. I guess a lot of them might buy annual passes, but some people might be like, I'm just going to pop up to the Pleasure Beach in the afternoon. I'm just going to go and ride Valhalla. I just fancy a ride on Valhalla. And with that system, you allow them to do that and then be tempted into other options. And imagine the headlines that Blackpool would get if they said Blackpool Pleasure Beach is now free to enter. It would get, it's like, the PR on it is great. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not blind to the negatives about it. Like we said, antisocial behavior, you need increased security. All of those things come at a cost. I get that. But for me, it'd be like, well, we're kind of at rock bottom, so why not just give it a try? Let's just see it. This park operated like this for like over 100 years. Let's just try it. And no one, if it's like, it was an absolute failure, and it's like, cool, just go back to what we were. We're coming up with simple solutions for complex problems, and I get that. But for me, that's kind of where my head is at when I look at what's happening to the park, because obviously we've talked about so the Grand Prix removal. You mentioned River Caves, so that has been shut for the season. Apparently it's awaiting a part. No, or it might be awaiting a part, or it might have a leak. Again, not much communication on it. Some of the rumors I've seen is that there's a leak in the trough, which they can't find.
Oh, right.
Which that's quite a major thing to try and find a tiny leak in a big ride system. Obviously, like you say, it's very historical. It's got the historical marker. Everyone's going to be upset. Well, enthusiasts are going to be upset if that ride has to go. I would be. I love it. I think it's a great little attraction for the family to go on. It's great when it's raining.
I know, right? Yeah.
It's
just happened in Blackpool, believe it or not.
But let's not even underestimate the complex. Even if they said, right, we cannot fix River Caves, it's going to have to go. It can't just stand there not operating. The River Caves ride system is integrated into the Wallace and Gromit ride system.
Yeah.
So it's hugely complex to try and fix that issue.
Yeah.
And we have had some precedents from Blackpool before. When they wanted the wild mouse gone, it was gone. There was no warning. It was just 1 minute it was there, and then sorry guys, it's gone. And I kind of feel like if that's what Amanda's intention was with the River Cave, she would have just done it.
Yeah.
Don't think she'd have just had it stood there without anyone talking about it for a season. I don't think. Could be wrong.
No.
That's just my gut instinct on it.
Yeah, and I think these water dart rides are difficult and costly because of the water, the way the systems work, and I was really gutted when we lost Pirate Adventure at Drayton Manor. I remember going on Pirate Adventure back in 1990. I was 5 years old, and it kind of blew my mind because I was 5, and going on this boat dart ride with all these animatronics and things. And then I went on Pirates of the Caribbean. So it kind of changed after that. And but it was such a special ride because that ride for me is what got me really into dark rides, because how immersive it was so unique and different to anything I'd experienced before growing up as a kid. It was like, it's actually real around me.
And then you went on Toyland Tours.
Oh, and then Toyland Tours, you know,
Same.
Haunted House, you know, all these rides growing up, and then the Haunting, Hex, you know, we had some really great stuff in the UK. But I was gutted because, again, it was costly to run because of the complexity of having this water ride, and it eventually, you know, if it's not maintained, it's gonna fall apart because it's water. And you know, hate to think how long that water had been on that ride for over so many years, but hey, it was a shame to lose it. And again, the building's still there.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of hopeful that Drayton Manor have something in mind for that attraction. And it's like what we're saying with the river caves, isn't it? You don't want it just sat there, not doing anything. If you're going to replace it, at least replace it with something brand new that's fresh and exciting. Yes, it's sad to lose it, but it's better to have something brand new and working than something just sat there and you can't help but walk past and go, oh, that doesn't look great because that's not open.
And you can't go on it anyway.
Yeah, and it's similar with the effects on rides. We're talking about like Trommel Tunnel on Curse at Alta Manor. Like, if it's not fixable, I'd much rather you remove it and put a new scene in or a new effect in than just you go through the Trommel Tunnel with it not turning. And you just keep going through and it's still not turning. Replace it, do something. I know it's an iconic thing, but if it's not working, then it just needs sorting out. And it would be a shame to lose the river caves because the history, and I'm pretty sure they want to maintain it. But if it's not fixable, do something exciting and new. Yes, it's great to have history. It really is. But it just doesn't look good if it's just not operating and it's just sat there, you know.
And let's not forget, actually, and I'm not advocating river caves being bulldozed tomorrow at all. We're saying if it's proving too difficult to fix, and maybe we look to the future and what Blackpool needs to do to get back on its feet. If you take the river caves out, you've got rid of Grand Prix. You know, to the right, you've got the Black Hole, which used to be the Waltzer in the Dark. That's just a building now. And then underneath, you've got all those amusements like the Bowlerdrome, that whole area. That's a huge, for a park that we say is super congested and all the rides are built on top of each other. You've actually got a huge amount of real estate in that area. So, you know, you could put something quite spectacular probably.
Absolutely. And it's not like they're not able to do that, because that's what we said with Icon. It was what they did so well with other attractions they've managed to fit in, is the ability that they have to be able to you know, build these roller coaster attractions around one another. You know, that's not easy to do. It's not straightforward. It's not like in America you have, you know, put a hypercoaster down and you're good to go. You can't do that at Blackpool. So it's, you know, these people are very clever. That, you know, they've shown that they can do it, and that's a great example. Like what you said, Bex, is a great example of what, you know, the space that you could potentially use to create something new and exciting that, again, is going to bring people in. I just think with Blackpool and like what Drayton Manor are doing at the minute, you just got to keep doing new things. I think you don't want to do this thing where you do something new and then 8 years later you're in the same situation again and go, what do we do now? You know, you've got to keep finding ways of doing that. So if this, you know, if they were to introduce free entry again, I think that would certainly start that ball rolling again for Blackpool.
Something's just struck me when we've just been speaking about that. Obviously, everyone kind of expected Amanda to make this announcement at the closure of the Grand Prix, and she didn't. And she's kind of said on X, don't ask me anymore. I'll tell you when I've made a decision, which kind of said to me that she hadn't made a full decision. I wonder if what's happening with the river caves is playing on her mind. If she thinks there's a chance that the river caves won't open again, and I've just stuck a gyro swing on that Grand Prix site, when actually I could have done a much bigger project, like a legacy project, like the way that the big one was for Jeffrey Thompson. Is she kind of holding back and seeing what the outcome is with the river caves and going, right, before we whack a gyro swing there, let's just see, because we might potentially be able to do something a lot bigger. Like, literally, this is just my Amanda listening to this is going, what are you talking about? It's absolute nonsense. We're putting a gyro swing there. But you don't know. Is that the reason why she's got cold feet? Is it because there might be something else that might be an option, depending on how things go when this maintenance is being looked at?
Absolutely. You'll be looking at saving money. If you are going to build something big and do something big like that, you're going to, some things might have to stay closed, because of cost of maintenance and staffing and everything. So, I mean, I would love it for Blackpool to have that. It's such a unique park for guests, but also for enthusiasts because of the attractions that are there. You're going to be going on things that you won't find really anywhere else. And for that unique atmosphere, that's like you said earlier on in the episode, Bex, is like, it's always had that really great, that kind of British, that kind of classic
seaside.
Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside kind of vibe. That you don't get anywhere else.
There's literally a shop called Kiss Me Quick. So, lean into that. Yeah, lean into your sort of quirkiness, maybe. Anyway,
absolutely.
Do you remember when I first became an enthusiast? I mean, we're going back now, maybe 20 years ago. There was talk about what Blackpool was going to do next, even back then. So big one wasn't even that old then, and it was like, what's happening next? And I think maybe it wasn't that long ago. Maybe it was when Top Thrill Dragster opened, and there was a great enthusiast rumor that Blackpool were looking to basically put Top Thrill Dragster out on a pier into the sea. So
I've not heard this.
Down Watson Road, like in the park, basically that's one massive launch out onto a pier, and then it was going to be like a strata coaster in the middle of the North.
Oh my goodness.
And back into the park. That was a great round. I mean, people were talking about that for years. Clearly it never happened.
Yes, I can't imagine why. We talk about Top Thrill 2 struggling to open, and then and this would be like we're health and safety check. No, that's
the middle of the North
Sea. That's definitely been scrapped straight away. That's definitely been scrapped.
But I think what people were thinking about was what's gonna, you need that thing, isn't it, that's going to attract attention. And clearly that would have attracted a lot of publicity and a lot of attention, in the wrong direction, out to sea. But if we now do have this footprint within the park, which is quite big, you have potentially got the space not to put in a strata coaster, because I think that's another episode where we talk about strata coasters and their huge sort of failing.
Oh my goodness, but King Dakar. What is going on?
It's just that's definitely another episode. We'll cover that.
Oh dear.
But you've got that space to do something which is massively impactful, a bit like that, that is going to get people talking about Blackpool Pleasure Beach again, maybe. And maybe that's where it needs to go. This is just our opinion. This is we are not business people. We the only accounts that we see for Blackpool Pleasure Beach is what they publish, which was from the 2022 season. That's how far behind they run. So those figures that we mentioned last year were the year up till March 23. The year up to March 24 will be out in December this year. So we can take a look at them when they come out and see how things are looking. But in conclusion, question was, is it time Blackpool Pleasure Beach brought back free entry? What are you saying?
I'm all for it, in terms of doing something that is going to bring people back or bring new people to Blackpool. I think it's such a unique theme park with some really good rides. I mean, Icon is still one of the best roller coasters in the country, and Valhalla is still one of the best dark rides in the country.
The big one is still the second tallest roller coaster in the country.
It's tall, even by 2 feet. Don't forget, it's very important to remember, even by just a couple of foot, it still pretty much is the biggest roller coaster in the UK. So there's still lots of really good reasons to visit Blackpool. I mean, even the Ghost Train. If you love classic dark rides, the Ghost Train is still fantastic.
The actually haunted Ghost Train.
Well, exactly. One of the original Ghost Trains is still there. So there's so many things and so many reasons to visit. So it's worth doing. And I think if that's if there's a way of doing that and getting people in, I'm all for it. Like I said the other week we're talking about Alton Towers. A lot of this is because we care.
Yeah.
And because we want the parks to do well, not because we're trying to be negative for any reason, but, it's important that, we're able to share our concerns because we love these parks. And at the end of what the spokesperson said on going back to these annual passes, they also said that guests can also opt for our spring, summer, or autumn season passes. So you can do free visits for a certain time of year. So you can obviously opt for doing for a smaller amount. You could just visit in the springtime or in the autumn. So
yeah.
So for me, that's also a possibility, because if you do have a Merlin pass and you want to visit Blackpool for a couple of times over a certain time of year, you could opt in for an autumn, pass while things quieten down at other theme parks, and you could just visit Blackpool if you're missing your theme park fix during a closed season. That's a positive, I'd say.
Definitely, it's quite innovative, and I think also a positive is, they've mentioned in that press release that they are going to be opening 200 and something days of the year.
221, I think it said.
We talk about on this podcast a lot about why does the UK theme park industry shut over winter when it doesn't in any other country, and the fact that Blackpool, even in a time of financial hardship to some extent, that's what they're saying. They've got increased staff costs, the maintenance costs are huge. They are still opening at a time of year where it's more challenging to open, and we can only thank them for that. I think that's it's great to be able to have that option to visit a park into November, December, and then earlier on in the year as well. Conclusion from me is I'm all for it. I think you bring back free entry, give it a try. If it's a disaster, revert back. It's not, you haven't got to implement a huge amount of change to trial it, because you've still got those wristband scanners. So let's give it a try. The park's been too quiet this year. It's been too quiet, and it's not going to get better on its own. And if you haven't got the means to open a major attraction at the start of the 2025 season, which I don't think they have, I think it would have been started to be built by now. Then do something else to generate some publicity, because and again, for a future episode, if Universal gets the go ahead, it is changing the landscape of the UK theme park industry.
Absolutely.
And it's only going to be harder work for these parks to compete. So do something now, get ahead of the game, and give it a try. But I am not Amanda Thompson, funnily enough. So it's just my opinion. And that's what we do on podcast. Right. Well, there we go. That was this week's episode. We will be back next week, and hopefully talking about all things scary, and scare attractions and Scarefest. And hopefully by then we will have ridden the new and improved Hex. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
It remains open long enough for us to get on.
I'm just excited to hear welcome to the ancestral home of the Earls of Shrewsbury.
Well, what if they've taken that away?
No.
They might have changed the...
No. We're talking about change. I'm like, no, don't change it.
Don't change anything. Just make it exactly the same.
I'm hoping they've not changed any like the music is, for me, is iconic. And the theme music. I'm pretty sure they haven't, because when they did the thing on Facebook and they had the kind of Hex ambient music playing whilst the thing was spinning round, they'd still had that. So I'm quite confident that they've kept a lot of the music, and like the intro videos when you're walking through and talking about the history of the chained oak and all these things. I'm really excited to see that they've kept a lot of that stuff, and kept a lot of that mystery that was, that helped build the attraction up. As you walk through the queue line, there's a lot of mystery. What's going on? What's happened? Why is there a tree that's chained up? So
it will be very interesting to see. Right, until the next time, park fans, we've been Parkcast.
The UK's original theme park podcast.